Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Johnson, and I am owner of the company Wowed Institute. And thank you so much for coming to today's webinar. I'm super excited to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, the initial call, because it's such a critical element of your success in terms of wowing your patients and wowing your clients. So we're going to talk about that, talk about what that looks like. Really an important topic, and one that I think sometimes, unfortunately, we take for granted. So we're going to do that today. Before we get too far along, I just wanted to remind those of you out in the audience, if you are watching this live, that's awesome. If you're watching it filmed, that means that you went to my website, www.wowedinstitute.com. You went to the TC training tab, and you had a password that I've given you to be able to watch this not only today, but into the future as an archived file. And it will also have the PDF that you're seeing today, as well as other material that you may need, so that if you want to go back and touch this in the future, or if you have somebody start new for you, they can go back and watch this at any time. So we're going to get into the 5 key elements of the initial call. We're going to do that. We're going to talk about why it's so important as we go here. So let me go ahead and switch slides. So as we get into this, what we want to remember is the first impression is really critical as it relates to wowing our patients. In fact, I think sometimes we forget how important it is. Disney hasn't forgotten. They do an incredible job of this, and we're gonna remind all of us out there in the audience, all of you out there in the audience, just how important this is and why we need to be focused on it on a regular basis. We're then going to get into getting past nice, and it's awesome if your front desk person is nice. Congratulations. I think that's awesome. They should be nice. That should be the price of admission, but it's well beyond nice. I can't tell you how many offices I've come into where people say, well, you know, my front desk, Sarah, she's really nice. That's great, but it's not enough. We really have to arm our front desk people with the right tools so that they can wow each and every time that phone rings. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to get in breaking down the 5 key elements of a great call, what those are, what those look like. And so we're going to get into that into some depth. And then fourth, we're going to talk about idea implementation. You know, out there in the audience, I can tell you, I can't tell you how many seminars I've done, but it's been many, where the business owner, the business leader, the doctor comes to me and says, we've just got to get more ideas going in the practice. And I really don't think that's it. I think it's idea generation versus idea implementation. And so when I talk to doctors, I'm like, idea generation is great, but it's really taking an idea and implementing it well that'll really transform your practice. And that's really what we're going to get into a little bit towards the end of today's webinar. And then lastly, we're going to talk about action plan, how to use that action plan, as well as what to expect on the next webinar. The first impression is a critical element of your success. There's no doubt about this. And a couple of things that I want to talk about as it relates to this are feelings versus logic. This is one of the things I talk about in my book a great deal, and that's simply this. Is logical as you may think you are, as logical as you may think your patient or their parents are, most of our decision making, while there's logic there, is rooted in emotion. It's rooted in feelings. And if we're not sensitive to that, if we're not aware of that, we may miss an opportunity to wow a potential patient and get them to not even decide to engage us because we missed a chance to use those feelings in a way to get them to feel really good about our practice even before they come in for their initial exam. So we're going to talk about that, what that looks like, but we're going to do it in this way. I want to make sure that you understand this continuum. So every person out there in the audience is operating on an emotional or feeling continuum. It's part of what we do. And on one side of those emotions or feelings is pain, and on the other side is pleasure. Our brains are going to naturally move us towards what we feel is pleasurable, and it's going to naturally move us away from what our brains feel is painful. And it's going to do this many times subconsciously, either based on our life experiences or things that our brain in our particular lives has categorized as painful or pleasure. And so one of those things I can tell you out there in the audience is one of those feelings of pleasure for our parents, especially our primary decision maker, mom. One of those pleasure feelings is making good decisions for her family. And so the more she feels really good about that with us from that very first phone call, or quite honestly, that very first interaction with our website, and we're going to get into that in a whole nother webinar. I have a gentleman that I've met out of New York. He's one of the best website developers, social media guys I know. I'm very careful in who I recommend. He actually did my website. He's got 50 or 60 orthodontic clients. He is going to be a featured speaker at the PCSO coming up this 2015. He is awesome. And so we're going to have him as a special bonus webinar talking about some things that all of you need to be thinking about as it relates to reputation management, first impressions, and those type of things as it relates to your website. But as